Now, welcome to World Chef Podcast. I'm your host, Ragnar, and you're listening to World on a Plate. Today, we have a very exciting guest. I'm here with Morgaine Gaye, a food futurologist, trend forecaster, researcher, and an author who studies the forecasts that shape what and how we eat in the future. So Morgaine explores society, consumer behaviors, geopolitics, and many other topics that affect our food. So with her PhD in quantum philosophy, Morgaine is an expert in making connections and finding links between seemingly unrelated elements which help forecast the future. And as a leading voice in food futurology, Morgaine advises global brands and creates future reports, lectures internationally, and has been featured on numerous media platforms like BBC News, on the Al Jazeera, and even Netflix. So without further ado, welcome, Morgaine. We're very pleased to have you on the podcast.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
I was almost having issue pronouncing that food futurologist. It's a very
Everybody has that problem, not just you.
so to get started, maybe for our listeners who might not have heard of your work yet and the food futurology, can you explain more about what it is and how you got started in that field?
Yeah, I mean, I feel a bit like an imposter right now just because you are a chef and this is a chef platform. And I am not a chef. And the food part of what I do is sometimes a little bit misleading because ultimately I do deliver my forecast to big food companies and food related brands. So that might be technology brands or kitchen appliances, things like that, but also governments and other organizations. But what I'm really looking at is the why. You guys are the what. You make the stuff, you make it taste good, and you are the innovators of the food itself. But my job really is to talk about what people will want in the future and why. And the why is really important because there's so much great new product development and great chefs and developers out there. But sometimes they're making product for people who don't want it. And that often happens a lot of the time. So my job, I look at everything, interiors, design, fashion, every sort of the pop culture, the cultural zeitgeist as we go forward, sort of seven to 10 years time,
Mm.
and try and make connections and then look at those indicators. And really, I'm looking for mass disruptive factors. So, for example, COVID was a big
Right.
disruptor, or anything that's happening geopolitically that really changes the whole behavior of a culture or a society. So my job is to identify those things before they come and then explain how that will affect human behavior. And of course, food is really the output of human
Mm.
behavior. Food is absolutely everything. When we affect a food of a culture, we affect the whole society, the infrastructure, beliefs, religions, sharing, community, family, and livelihood and well-being. So of course it's a huge topic. And so for me, I'm looking at all of those elements. Wished I had a short answer for that. That is the abbreviated answer for that in
Yeah.
what I do.
No, yeah, let's dig deeper into that. It's extremely interesting. And I mean, so how exactly, what's the process of how do you exactly go and identify trends before it happen? What are you looking at in
Yeah.
in deeper?
This is also not a system. It's a bit of a science and an art. I mean, I'm looking at everything and I'm seeing a lot of things that everybody else sees, but I'm probably very perceptive and I'm noticing little tiny, the very small little indicators or things that I think, oh, that's interesting. Oh, and then I suppose I collect those little thoughts in my mind and make notes until I see a pattern emerging across category, across cultures. It can be just joining dots over time. And then I try and develop a hypothesis. And then I try and disprove that or prove it. And over time, it starts to generate. So I was mapping, for example, 2020 and the whole COVID disruption from 2012. So I kept mapping this up to 2020. And as it got closer and closer, I was more able. So I was talking about disruption and showing lots of factors of that disruption as we got closer. And then in 2018, 2019, I think it was the first time it was filmed, when I showed pictures of people in masks and hazmat suits and a picture of a virus. And I said, you're going to get to 2020, you're going to look back at your life from 2019 and you're not going to recognize it. It's going to change our whole structure. I didn't know it's COVID, but I had I'm very, when I do talks, it's usually around 300 unique images in an hour. So it's not a lot of, there's no graphs and charts and numbers and data. Because for me, data and numbers can only be brought from the past. They
Mm.
don't really tell you about the future. They're just looking at exponential graph of growth or change. What I'm trying to look for are those disruptors. So I'm looking for small disruptors and then trying to map them over time.
All right. So what sort of signals are you paying attention to? What is a disruptor for you? What would be like
It's it's absolutely everything.
fine?
And that's why it's very difficult because that's why it's not just food. It's the way in which people may um, share food. It's the way that people may go to work. It's whether they stop wearing a watch. It can be how people communicate with each other, language. It's just absolutely everything. And that's why it's a very subtle job that I have to be really
Right.
sensitive to small things and also conversations with people who you don't associate with. So we all associate with people mostly like ourselves. So I'm sure you know a ton of chefs. You have lots of chefing conversations because you're in the world of chefs. And so that's what we tend to do. We tend to gravitate around people like us, and our conversations tend to be in a vacuum in whatever job we're in, whatever field we're in, and even just us as people, we tend to be friends with people like us. So I'm trying to have conversations with people nothing like me, who I've got nothing in common with.
Mm.
So that's also, I just have to go and look at stuff a lot.
Right. So you would use social media to look at stuff, or it's out in the
Not
street, or just sitting in a coffee shop and having coffee, looking at people, or what? Is that
No,
or
it's
more like
the sitting
laboratory?
doing doesn't the sitting doing isn't so great. So
No.
and also one of the things with social media, it's become a mirror of what we do up ourselves. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
know we'll say, oh, everyone's talking about avocado on toast. No, it's because
Mm.
you're talking about avocado on toast. Now
Exactly.
all of your feed is avocado on toast. So no, that doesn't work. It's really
Mm.
hard to do. Desk-based research is a little bit challenged. You can do a little bit, but
Mm.
and also sitting and watching doesn't work. You have to be out and about, observing, looking, listening, travel. And I travel a lot for my job. So
Right.
that's the sort
Right.
of stuff I'm doing.
Mm.
I
Is
wish
that
I
like
had I wish I had a brilliant kind of
yeah?
scientific answer for you, but
Yeah.
I just don't have that.
I mean, so how like when you're consulting groups, like are you looking very far into the future, or is it just for next year, or
Definitely not next year. I mean, this is typically the fads. So right now I'm doing a little bit, I get a lot of things around November, December, which is what we're going to be eating in 2026.
Mm.
That's just the faddy moment. You know, it's like, oh, matcha and that's all been and gone, but you know, medicinal mushrooms, or they just want the top line fun facts that's going to be a newspaper sort of bit of fun. That's really just the fad, and that's not really what I sell. I'm selling long-term trend forecasts, which are much more underpinned because most of the businesses that I work with who are generating product, those food companies, it takes them at least 18 months. I mean, usually around 2 to 3 years to innovate and get a product to market because the big brands, you know, they have to tick a lot of boxes and killing people with what they make is not going to fly. And also wasting money is not going to fly. So it's got to be right and it's got to hit and it's got to be, I look at the packaging, I work across the brand itself when I innovate with them. So packaging, marketing, who is this for? What is this product? And what's the consumer appetite for it, really?
Mm. Do you like feel that there's a typical place where you find trends begin? Is it generational? Is it are there any typical factors? Is it climate? Is it the economy? Is it well viruses?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, and I think because it is a multi-sensory, it's multifaceted, which is why I have to look at everything. That's why I have to know a little bit about geopolitics, a little bit about economics, a little bit about AI. I talk about all of those things in my trend briefings because I have to know I'm not the world expert in any of those things. But I just reminded me, I did a talk in New York quite a few years ago now. And the other person on the panel was an economist, a top economist in the US. And he messaged me about a year later and he said, I can't believe with your very little knowledge that you predicted Brexit and a hung parliament with Theresa May, which are the two things that happened.
Okay.
And I am not an economist on any level, and he didn't get it right, and it is his job. And it's not because I'm a great economist or a great anything. It's just because I'm picking up the indicators around the topic, not just the topic itself. And so I think it gives me an advantage to not be a specialist. So I
Mm.
know about food. I know quite a bit about cooking and food manufacturing and food process. But if I'm in a room of chocolatiers, they know way more than I do about chocolate. I know enough to get by, but not like at their level.
Right.
So that's kind of, I'm not an expert in anything.
Right, right. You mentioned fats, and we seem like take avocado or whatever,
Yeah.
or quinoa or whatever. How do you make a
Yes.
difference between what is a fad and what is a true sort of long-term trend change, or like what's the definition of a of?
Yeah, I would say that most foods are in response to the long-term trend. Most foods themselves are faddish, I suppose,
Right.
over time. So it's a bit like we had cordon bleu cookery, or we have with added protein, or we have, it's the next thing. And we're always looking for the next new thing. But the deeper meaning under that is much more interesting. And I suppose the fads on the top are, if it really hits, so Dubai chocolate would be a great example of that.
Mm.
But everybody, they think, wow, Dubai chocolate, where did that come from? Well, it touches all of the key indicators right now of things that people want. It just got the timing right because
Mm.
it was about, it's not that Dubai chocolate, no, pistachios aren't new, chocolate isn't new, chocolate bars aren't new. So why that, why then? And that's my job to say, this is why it's so big. It's because it took texture. And texture is something, it's really the right now, it's the new flavor, and that's going to go through. That's not just Dubai chocolate, it will be the next thing and the next thing. We're looking for new interest inside something. We're looking for texture because we've been living in a very flat screen world for so long, since 2020.
Right.
We're hungry for something more than just taste, and texture is where it's at. So that's one of the big pieces. Plus the salty sweet combination,
Mm.
always a winner. It's basically the trifecta of delicious,
Mm.
creamy, crunchy, and salty. It's got all of the component parts. So that it answered the problem, but it talked to where we're at right now, where we want something decadent, special. It's got to feel elevated because we can't afford the big treats because generally there's a bit of an economic slump. So we want to feel that luxury in a me moment. It just addressed everything brilliantly.
Mm. Wow. Like, so if we're looking back a little bit, like, and you mentioned COVID, what sort of indicators would you have seen that would lead to COVID, and what happened, to our uh, how did our consumer behavior change
Oh,
2020 or onwards?
yeah. I mean, two huge questions. The first one's really hard to answer because, like I said, I was mapping it from 2012.
Yeah.
So I was looking at disruptive factors. And for me, the first lot of disruptive factors started to emerge with the fall of the things that we held to be good and true. So we started to see a collapse in religion. We started to see a lot of sex scandals, Me Too movement, a lot of celebrities falling from grace. We started to see something where we started to destabilize the whole structure of society. That was kind of the first lot of indicators for me. That's how it started. And then I was looking at us being monitored in different ways, looking at air quality. So I started looking at air a lot, and that's actually gone through. So there's so much about that, which I probably won't go into, but that was me tracking up to 2020. What changed in 2020? I mean, everything changed. And the way we ate together changed, the way we thought about food changed. And it's not, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So that's where we're at. People definitely in the UK started reading the labels more because they had time. So up until 2020, we saw an increase in processed non-meat meats, so meat-free alternatives. And then during 2020, that really bottomed out. It declined massively because people started to read the labels, had more time, thought, goodness, what is in this? It's got 40 ingredients. Lots of stomach aches, lots of people just went against all of the processed food. People have more time to cook, more time to bake, more time to sit together as a family and share. Value systems shifted, people working from home shifted. And because people started working from home, most people had had a very structured life before that. Breakfast, something maybe at 11 o'clock at lunch. Yeah, then you had lunch a bit later. Then maybe you had a snack in the afternoon and then you had dinner. So we were already in a 5, 6 meal culture. That now just moved completely. It just went snacking.
Mm.
And we're really still in that place. And the structure of our days have really fragmented so that we used to structure our days with 3 meals a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. That started to shift. And then with flexible work, that shifted everything. The way we shop has shifted because of that. So we're not doing one big shop, we're doing multiple shops. So we're buying groceries in a much more ad hoc way. We're delivering in more, way more. That went through the roof during 2020 and it's
Wow.
never gone back.
Mm.
So people are having more food delivered. They're probably cooking less.
Mm.
It's shifted so much actually. And we think that it would have been shifted for a good thing, a better thing. But that's a debate, really, whether that's a good thing or not, because it depends on your beliefs. I mean, but I personally think cooking food is a better thing, and you make it yourself from scratch. But I think that's declined,
Mm. Mm.
even though it peaked during
Even then,
2020, and then we
then.
thought, there were lots of things that we thought were so great in 2020, like going into nature more and being more connected, and really we thought we could hold on to all of that and kindness, and in some ways we have lost a lot of that.
Yeah, that's true. It was crazy just a year after COVID, after all these, what you're saying, how we're going to change and be more careful about each other and the nature. And it's like 1 year later, people were traveling more than ever before and just
Exactly.
revenge traveling and
Yes.
revenge dining and what have you seen.
100%.
We
Yeah.
forgot so fast. We forgot so fast.
Yeah. And also informality. That really happened during 2020. So
Mm.
it happened with clothes, it happened in the workspace. I remember the very first work event I did once everything opened up, and I turned up sort of in a suit jacket and something else. And I felt like I sort of time traveled to another planet because I was the only person
Yeah.
dressed shifted. And the way we ate shifted. It's less formal. We just don't want the formal dining in the same way.
Mm.
Formality has gone.
True. I hope you told the tie manufacturers about that because I haven't worn I used to wear a tie all the time. I haven't worn a tie in years now.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, it's very interesting. I would know that cultural shift. Food, I think, is a brilliant output because it's the one thing we all have to be interested in some way just to stay alive. Whether it's even not eating it, we still have to be interested in not eating it. But other things we can avoid. We might not care about interior design, but we have to care on some level about food. And
Yeah.
so it's always a great indicator of the social structures and social behavior. It's very anthropological, I think.
Mm. And I mean, I guess now for the $1 million question, the
Oh yeah.
future. And also, no, because you were mentioning, so we're still in that period, the pre-COVID, and we're still in that COVID period, sort of consumer behavior, our behavior. And so you mentioned like you saw like you see current trends with the Dubai chocolates and so what are you looking at right now? And like, do you see anything like are you making any guesses into further into the future of what that might evolve into?
Well,
Uh,
unfortunately, I can't make any guesses because I will never work again. If I'm guessing, I'm not working.
all right,
I'm not.
right,
It's
sorry.
not going to work. So I have to get it pretty right. I have to, but,
Mm,
within a year or two, I have to be fairly accurate. There is, one of the things that I said that 2020 was the warm up for 2026.
mm,
So when I say the warm up, it's not that we're necessarily going to have COVID too, although that may happen, who knows? But it's not really that because nothing will disrupt in the way that that did.
Mm.
But the net 2026 will disrupt us in a very different way. What we're going to start seeing is a destabilization of the banking systems and governments and geopolitical power structure. It's going to be huge next year. End of February, beginning of March, it's massive. And we are now in this time. So COVID really was the beginning. It's not that we're now in the COVID time, it's that we're in a new paradigm for humanity. And that was the beginning that set us off without the roadmap. And that's why we are so destabilized. It's why there's such a massive rise in anxiety, especially in Gen Z. We're seeing a real, everything feels chaotic because we've never lived in this space before. This is the industrial revolution of our time. And so it's really AI. It's AI versus humanity. And that's what we're seeing in the next 18 months. Because within 18 months, AI will no longer need a human being to give it instructions or tell it what to do. It will be self-instructing. So off the back of
Yeah.
that, there's a lot going on. I mean, it is really massive, and I couldn't, when I do an hour presentation on it, I can't even touch the sides of it
Mm.
because there's so much to say about what's coming, because it's changing the face of our value systems, what we value. Kindness will be we'll actually get valued on that. I mean, we'll get kindness ratings. Our immunity status, huge. The ingredient of the future, well, the the sort of selling proposition of the future is with added immunity. The ingredient of the future is air, protein, putting air in things, which of course digital printing and everything allows us now, especially with like sugarcraft, to put more air in things, which makes chocolate prices cheaper because of course they're
Right.
going up. But you get less actual cocoa content, but the mouthfeel perception is interesting because you've got air in it, creates volume and texture, is always a great thing. And you can change multiple textures with air. So I think we're going to see a big output in that. So there's just so many things that are coming because we're going to value the human hand in things because we'll start to realize that most of everything we interact with will be computer generated, will be robot made, will be, somehow have a digital intervention. And we'll really value the handwritten letter, the handmade thing, the mended item. So it's really about those future keepsakes. It's the nostalgia of humanity,
Right.
and nostalgia is right now and will go into the next few years play a huge part because we feel so. Nostalgia always comes up when we're in an economic
Right.
slump,
So
and
with
we're
that,
nostalgic. Yeah, we're nostalgic for times we haven't even lived in.
right. So would that like translate into we see a little bit of actually I think in Paris there is a restaurant being opened soon called Nostalgia or something. So does that
Perfect.
explain like because we talk a lot about in World Chef we talk a lot about heritage cuisine now and we're talking about our grandma's cuisine and so is
Yeah.
that like how we can read into that? Is that something that could
Oh yeah,
relate
absolutely,
to that?
because it feels like it's got some meaning. We're desperate for meaning. We want meaningful moments, and we also want to have experiences. It's the things that money can't buy. So positive experiences that bring people together. That's a big thing is people aren't especially the younger generations aren't really good at spending time together that doesn't involve a device, but they love the opportunity to do it.
Mm,
So it's almost like that needs to be created for them and then they will come.
right.
The nostalgia piece, it's not just this is my grandmother's food, because other people might not be able to relate to your nostalgia on your grandmother's food.
Yeah.
What it's more about is taking an era. So I'm going to take the 1970s. I think Black Forest Ghetto was a big thing in the 1970s. So we take Black Forest Ghetto, but we bring it into 2026 and we mix it. We combine it with a croissant, but we make the croissant a cube, and inside which we put layers of Black Forest, something like that. It's the hybrid that gives us that sense of something new because we're always wanting this newness connected to something which is more meaningful and nostalgic.
Right. How,
It's
what,
a
what do
twist.
what do chefs or restaurateurs need to be aware of in that? I mean, you mentioned something important, experience.
Oh, huge.
So, so like looking into the customer experience and not just the food, but but
Yeah.
the whatever you can build around storytelling or nostalgia or mu with music or colors or
Yeah, I mean, actually, it's almost doesn't have to try so hard.
right.
There's something about, you do a pop-up restaurant in a disused warehouse.
Mm,
There's only three things on the menu. It's perfect. The food's foraged or it's seasonal. There is no menu. This is what it
mm,
is. Eat it or don't eat it. That's the experience.
mm,
People are overwhelmed with choice. People are bombarded with sensation. So, in some ways, the experience they want isn't the bells and whistles Disneyland experience.
mm.
That used to be the case when people used to go to the dinner and then they go to the theatre, and then the theatre was dinner. It's like, whoo,
Right.
flames and
Yeah.
flambe, and it's all going on. It's like the magic show. Now it's a much more about realness. I mean, desperate realness. It's imperfect, the imperfection, and it's very hard for chefs
Mm,
because they have crafted the perfection in a way. And it's now about if you're talking about your grandmother's food, it's not perfect. It's kind of a bit dished up. And there's something now more appealing when we no longer believe all of the images and social media because they're edited, and especially the younger generations coming through, especially Gen Z, who are the biggest cohort alive. They are the future consumer.
mm.
And they like things that are a little bit dark and kind of challenging.
Right.
So it's like it's nostalgic, it's almost like edible Nosferatu. It's dark and it's smoky and it's a little bit,
Mm.
I wouldn't not evil, but it's got the smell of graves, and there's like this because perfumes are indicating that already. So we see
Okay.
their scent preferences are no longer the florals, and they're moving into something much darker. And so that's where that chefing, the kind of creating that experience for those diners is. It's in your living room.
Yeah.
You bring it into your living room and you keep it simple.
Yeah. Back to the authenticity,
A
simplicity, the
hundred
natural.
percent. Yeah.
Mm.
More than you can ever imagine. It's
Oh,
like,
yeah. Mm.
because they're not going to believe now oh, these are heritage tomatoes from and it's like, yeah, okay. It's just tomatoes. I picked them earlier.
Right. Ah, interesting. And so, I mean, are these trends when you're looking into like, these indicators? Are they usually sort of, is it quite global or are we talking Western culture? Or somewhere I heard everything starts in America and then they eventually they will come to the UK and then Europe or whatever. Is,
Well,
is that the case?
there's some truth. I mean, not exactly. It is really difficult because there are so many micro trends, even within a country. So, in every country, there are micro trends that don't reach out. So, of course, I live in London, and some of the things that I think are very common here, people who live just an hour away will not perhaps be exposed to. So, and even though we've got social media, like I said, you're still being fed a limited amount of your social feed is because of who you are and what you're looking at. So, it's definitely much more Western. It typically, though, comes from the East, comes from Japan and Korea. There's a lot of stuff that generates there. Then it goes to the West Coast of the US. And then it goes to the East Coast of the US. And some things never cross over. Some things never make it even to the East Coast. Legislation's different. And then it typically goes to the UK. Netherlands are pretty trend driven. And Switzerland, there's a lot of food innovation there, and also a lot of food innovation in Israel. So it kind of spreads out a little bit. The thing with Britain, which makes us quite trend forward, is that we have zero cultural loyalty to anything in our past.
Mm,
So we've spent a lot of our heritage conquering and taking over other countries and bringing them in and almost making them, thinking that they're our own country and they're our own culture. And so our own culture, whatever that is, we're just such a hybrid. We really don't have any strong legacy of food. Not like Italy, for example,
right.
who are still eating what their great grandmothers ate. My mother wouldn't even recognize what I eat. Never mind my grandma or my great grandma. So we've lost, we just really are disconnected from a lot of heritage, which makes us, and as an island, outward looking,
Mm.
constantly outward looking.
And you mentioned when you mentioned Switzerland and Israel innovation, I'm thinking immediately alternative proteins. Proteins is that something that you were thinking like laboratory made maybe?
They're definitely interested in that because they have the money and the
Mm,
resources and the technology there. So that's one of the things. But just generally, they seem to be interested in food innovation.
right,
And a lot of the global brands are, operating within those countries or using those countries as a generator for product.
right. So yeah, because we have often had that conversation here with the chefs whether we will stop eating live animals as our food, or will it be
Yeah.
laboratory made or just molecules instead of shipping a tomato from Spain to England? Will it just use the tomato molecule to create the flavor? Is that something that you see happening with
Yeah, I see all of that happening. And, there's a lot of things in precision fermentation with chocolate and with it's just, there's a lot of technology out there. I mean, there's always been a bit of technology, even if we've not been aware of it. So we think about things like the iceberg lettuce or the rainbow trout. They are just genetically modified species that never existed in nature. And it's even like seedless grapes, it's just made
Yeah.
up by humans. But there is a lot of innovation. And like I said, air protein will be what will probably be a dominant
Yeah.
protein of the future just because it's not resource heavy and it doesn't have a lot of ingredients. It's not playing God in a way, perhaps that some of the sort of laboratory grown meats are for a lot of the consuming population who wouldn't be happy with that kind of generating of protein.
Right. What is
Um,
air protein? Sorry,
yeah, what is air protein?
yeah, now I need to actually Google up and you tell me.
Yes, well, I mean, I'm not like as I'm not an expert in this, but there's a lot of money going into this in Silicon Valley to get this to an affordable level for consumers.
Yeah.
But it's air plus microbes plus CO2, and in this they can create a product which can be ordered. You can say I'd like 10 tons of air protein, and within 2 hours that can be delivered.
Hmm.
So it's growing in mass sort of towers, I suppose. I mean, growing is a funny word. And then it's delivered as a powder form, and then you can turn it into prawns, chicken, whatever else. And in the sort of small trials, it looks and the texture is very like meat. So that's one of the options that we'll see going forward. But we're also seeing right now, we're in a bizarrely, it's a massive rise of the carnivore.
Hmm.
So we had the non-meat meats 2020 decline, and now we're seeing the grass-fed, grass-pastured, eating meat and nothing else but meat and butter. Basically, that's it. So there's quite a lot of promotion around the carnivore diet. Quite a lot of celebrities are doing that at the moment, and short-term beneficial results.
So,
So
so,
the pendulum always swings.
so vegan was a fad, or because we
Definitely,
still see growth in vegan, but it's so little and it's such a
yeah,
small population group. So it grew 100%, yeah, because they went from 1% to 2%,
yeah,
right?
yes, yes.
But like, is that still going to be a growing trend, or was it just a fad and we're going to be?
I don't think it's a fad. I think, and veganism's not new, and in
No,
some
no.
countries it's a religion. But I just think that it's it's about the choices because for a lot of people, for a lot of vegans, it's about the animals, vegan for the animals,
Yeah.
and the meat eating, sort of the carnivore diet, is obviously not for the animals. It's exactly for the opposite of that. It's my well-being. I'm eating real food. So it's a real food conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
And then you've got the vegans who may eat real food, but the majority will not be eating real food. I mean, whatever, what we deem as something we can
Right.
pick or kill and ourselves. It will be a laboratory made, a factory made, processed something, whether that's some kind of shake or some kind of meat or some kind of, it's probably not I'm not saying all vegans because you just you can't generalize. But is it the healthiest diet for the majority? Probably not. And so, but is it good for the animals? 100%.
Right.
But then it's about the choice of what are the other things that you're eating? Because if you're eating, for example, quinoa, It needs to be British or it needs to be local. Or if you're eating chia seeds, they're being shipped from, there's a big conversation. Every single food
Mm,
has a political agenda or political discussion behind it because there might be air miles, it might be decimating a community like chia has, or there's a lot of conversation around that. And then on top of that, we've got global warming. And so there are a lot of foods that have been British staples like potatoes and oats, root vegetables, which will decline because we'll have much wetter, warmer winters. It's the first time that we're now able to have a wine growing region in Britain. So it's going to shift everything in terms of food security, food accessibility, and that will change the diets well, definitely for vegans because it's the plant-based stuff.
yeah. Wow, so lot to be aware of. I don't know if do chefs need to be aware of these things? Like, where is the balance of opening your restaurant to do what you want to do and having to follow or not to get into the trap of chasing trends? But uh,
Mm.
you said it before, timing. Do buy chocolate.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Timing. Yeah. So.
Timing's a big thing. I
Mm,
think, I mean, I'm a big believer though in if you have a passion and a love and if you're doing it on feeling,
mm,
I think there's a lot of power in that.
right.
That it comes from it's your story, it's your thing. I think when you're chasing, replicating another thing, that's typically more shaky ground. It's about you bringing your unique self to the thing, whatever that is. So for you, your heritage, something that's really unique, that would be the thing. And getting behind it and supporting it 100%, because there's always going to be the audience for your thing,
Mm,
whether that's puffin or
yeah,
or it's a vegan restaurant. There will be your people.
exactly.
I think don't be all things to all people. That's tricky.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Morgan. Thank you
Yeah,
for
thank you so
sharing it
much for having me.
with yeah. Gives us a lot of food for thoughts. and
Yeah.
yeah, it's going to be yeah interesting to digest all that information that you just gave us. And we're having our World Chef Congress in 2026, and
Oh, great.
so well
Where is that? When and where is
in
that?
Wales, in May
Oh,
in
okay.
Wales.
Oh,
So
great.
for our audience, don't forget Wales in May 2026, and of course, future and the discussion around future trends. We do work with probably some of that could be your clients as well. Could be Electrolux Professional Equipment
Oh, yeah.
or Nestle Professional,
Yeah, yeah,
Switzerland. That's a very strong partners of ours, and yeah, these will be the discussion points, and yeah, and sometimes heated debates, especially when it comes into the alternative proteins and beyond
yeah,
meat
yeah.
and
Yeah, and
the
that's the
role of
thing.
the
I
chef.
mean, there's a lot of opinion, and they're all right on some level. Because if you believe it for yourself, and that's what you're going to go with as a chef, then you have to stand by that, I think. But like I said, belief is very difficult because one of the things we always think that what is now is good and true. What we did in the past, it's laughable and crazy, smoking on aeroplanes. How could we? What were we thinking? And then we think about the future and think, there's no way I'm going to do that. And then here we are. We're always living in that future time that we never thought we would do. So yeah, I think that there's always room for discussion. It's quite interesting.
Exciting. Yeah, thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for joining us, Morgan. Thank you for
Thank
sharing all your
you.
experience. And
Thank you.
well, maybe we can follow you on your I don't know if you have social media or your
Yeah, yeah,
website, and people
definitely.
can.
Just at Morgaine Gaye.
Yeah, we'll put on on the podcast webpage, we'll
Yeah,
put the link so people, if they want to start to dig more into trends
yeah, please
and
do. Follow me,
success. And
stalk me. I talk a load
yes,
of rubbish online. Do that.
wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again, Morgan. Thank you very much for joining
Thank
us.
you so much. Thank you.
And you for listening. Thank you very much. You're listening to World Chef's podcast. I'm your host, Ragnar Friedrichsen. This is World on a Plate. Take care. Bye bye.